Scot O'Neil, thanks for being with us, Scott.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. I've known you for 20 years.
Yeah. I don't think I had hair when I met you, but it was close. So let's begin by getting the elephant out of the room. How's your week been?
I was telling some of the folks outside before so if you don't know, if you might not be a Sixers fan, but the Sixers were the #1 team in the East, heavily favored to run through the East and contend for a championship. Most of the real warrior teams were knocked out, so it seemed like a pretty clear path to a ring, and it didn't happen. We got knocked out 2 days ago, or yesterday, or tomorrow. I have no idea. But I always give myself till noon the next day to be miserable, and then I flip a switch and I'm happy again. And so that's how I deal with it. There are 29 other teams that want to win a championship, and I would love to. That's not what I do. I don't pick players. I'm a change agent. I rebuild companies. I grow companies. When I got here, just to level set for everybody, because I was on the hot seat over there before. Our best players were, when I walked in, it was Evan Turner and Thad Young. We had 2 first-round picks over the next 5 years. We were practicing at a medical college with one court that we shared with future doctors of America. Our locker room had 12 lockers in it, and we have 15 players on the roster. Our workout room was the size of my bathroom. We were at the cap, and we hadn't won 50 games in over 10 years. So when you pull that lens back a little bit, from the pain of losing, and that's what we signed up for. My daughter interns with the Utah Jazz, and they were similarly first seeded, and she was telling me all year they were going to win the championship and throwing it in my face. And she called me after they lost, and she cried for 25 straight minutes. And I told her, I'd say, hey, I said, you're either going to fall in love with this, or you're going to run for cover and you're never going to look back. And you have to decide what life you want to lead. And it's not easy. The ups and downs and the roller coaster and the twists, and you end up upside down screaming for mama. And I will say for me, I love it. It's a total rush. And that's not to say I love losing. If any of you know me, I'm still flipping over Monopoly boards at home. So I have a competitive problem, so I just have learned to channel losing differently, because you have to compartmentalize. As my wife infamously told me several times, it's look, I need a dad, I need a husband, I don't need this crap here. And so, you have to figure out how to do it. But when you do pull that lens back and you look at, we're in Camden, an $80 million practice facility that they say is the greatest in the world. That's how people talk about it. And you talk about a team that has, our best player is 26 years old. Our second best player is 24. And we have barely scratched the surface into where this team's going. We've managed the cap extremely well. We have assets in terms of draft assets. And so I couldn't be more proud of this organization. And from a business end, if any of you are business people in the crowd, we've grown the value of this company over 6 times since I've been here in 8 years, and added over $2 billion in value. So in terms of business, check, team, check. And so for us, we focus a lot on the city, and look at these organizations as platforms to drive change and drive growth. And we've got a ways to go in terms of realizing our dream, which is obviously multiple parades down Broad Street. But yeah, no, to get back to your core question, was it a bad day? Yeah, it was a tough night. But I told Larry the story about, I live in Bucks County, and there's a corner store that I go to almost every day, and Nick owns the store. It's called Colonial. And I went in there after Game 5, and I talk to him every day, and he's a big Sixer fan, so we talk Sixers. He's a crazy fan, hangs a Sixers flag. And after Game 5, we had this epic collapse, a 26-point meltdown, and he literally looked me in the eye and just I don't want to talk to you, and just walked out of his own store. So I was like, this feels like home, So I ducked him after we lost that Game 7. I went in the store, but just kind of snuck around and got out of there. But I understand the pain. I do. I understand the love to winning, and I don't understand. I don't understand the reaction to some of our players, and I don't understand some of the booing and treatment of young men. I think if you ever understood the complexity of what you're doing and the impact that you have versus supporting them, I think the behavior would change pretty dramatically. And this city, has a reputation of stars not staying for their careers, and I hope that changes.
So I want to get to the book because I actually think it's, and I said this to you when we spoke last week, I think it's totally related to what we saw from the team. It made me wonder if the players, if they had read the book, because I felt like to sum up the book's thesis, be where your feet are, it's about relishing the present moment and being authentically in the present moment, which we'll get to your story and how you came to that epiphany through loss and regret. But in the present moment, you're not anxious about the past or anxious about the future.
Right.
And your players looked terrified. They were not having fun. And it's a game after all. And so I
would just say, like, there's a different kind of energy in the playoffs. And I saw, like, with Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn series, and Giannis in that Game 7, it's like the intensity. Don't mistake intensity for fear. There was not joy.
Yeah,
there's not joy. And I do believe that joy is a key ingredient for this particular team and the way they play, and in their success. And so there was not joy. But I don't think you could say fear. I think that's a stretch. Intensity, like the weight of the moment, that was real. And that comes with experience. He's 26. Ben is 24. Like, don't forget. Like, I don't know if I saw this one young man over here. You're not 24 yet or 26, but you will be someday. The rest of you experienced it already. Like, what you were like when you were 24 years old. I do. Okay, it wasn't pretty, by the way. And we are not, I think there's, how would I explain this? I would say that I wouldn't want to be a professional athlete today, personally. Like, I've seen the lifestyle, I've seen the pressure, I've seen the fishbowl, I've seen the tenure of the careers, the thought of, like, being at your peak earning years before you're 26, to me, doesn't make any sense at all. I think it's hard. I think what I love about our athletes, what I love about them, is that I've been in this business 25 years. Like, I started as a marketing assistant. I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've, like, had to run in and get people dry cleaning. Like, I've gone out and, gotten autographs for my boss because he wanted them for his kids. Like, I've tutored one of my boss's wives on how to turn a computer on. Like, I literally started at the bottom. So I've been fortunate enough to see it and do it. And the difference in the athletes today versus yesterday, meaning 25 years ago, is that they are smart. They are connected. They understand their brands. They understand themselves as an entity, a platform, a business, which is just incredible. They understand their role in society. And for any of you who take issue with players advocating for social justice, like, I got issue with you, to be honest with you. Like, thank goodness. And you might not agree with the issue that they take up or the side they take. I don't care. I want my own daughter. I have 3 daughters. I want them advocating for social justice. I want them saying, like, here's an issue I care about, Dad. My push with my daughters is they don't do the homework enough. That's my big thing. I'm like, you can't read some on TikTok and then come here and argue with me. But for our players, I love this new generation. I love Gen Zers. I love millennials. I love what they stand for. I love that they want complete access. I love that they want complete transparency. They don't get either, but they want it. And I love they're willing to work for it. I love this group. And it's not just about these athletes. Like, this is generational. Like, you can go in an office or on the court. You can go on the ice. And this new generation, I have time for them.
That's I love that. And by the way, when you were talking about to imagine when you were 24, I don't know if I could do a load of laundry when I was 24, let alone. So you mentioned your daughters. I have to say there are a couple of spots in the book where I got choked up. What is, there's this opening. Kira is your eldest daughter?
Kira's my middle.
Middle daughter.
17, yeah.
So you have this Camp Joy experience with her. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I belong to this organization called YPO. It's Young Presidents Organization. Many of you know, and some of you might not, but it's like this global network of CEOs. And so if you're a president or a CEO of a company, you should join this immediately. It just gives you a forum to discuss issues that you can't talk to anybody else about. So, you can't really talk to your board about things, and the people that work for you don't understand. And so it gives you a peer set where you tackle things like healthy marriage, challenges with raising children, where do you invest your money? It's incredible, and as well as stuff that has to do with business. And they have programs all over the world. And so this particular one, I took my preteen daughter to the backwoods of Ohio. And my brother's also in YPO, and so he had his daughter there, which was pretty amazing. But it's pretty it was roughing it by executive standards, I guess. Like it wasn't like, there's 12 guys sleeping in some barracks somewhere. But we had this one exercise where they just put all the dads in a room and they had the daughters outside. And they said, hey, you have 30 minutes, and it's the last time you're ever going to talk to your daughter. What are you going to say? And so we had 30 minutes to prepare and then 30 minutes to walk with them. And so I was stressed, struggling, anxious, and I just couldn't come up with anything that meant anything. I'm like scribbling notes, and then I just put it in my pocket. And my 3 daughters are all different. If you have children, it's amazing that they're like from you and your wife, and then like they have nothing in common. Like they're all like completely different. But my middle one she has all the qualities of my wife, okay? That would be the positive, as opposed to the other. She's just kind and loving and expresses her love, and she's so she's a young kid at the time, 11, 12 years old, and so she holds my hand. She's like, okay, Dad, where are we going? So we just go for a walk in the woods. And I said, hey, I want to talk to you about some things. She said, well, I just want you to, I want you to know that family. Like, what about family? Like a little kid would. And I was like, well, you're going to have friends, you're going to have boyfriends, they're going to come and go, and that's kind of fleeting. And I just want you to know, like, there's nothing more important than family. So lean in and lean on. And this is an area where I need you to engage and make this your everything, because there's nothing more important. She's like, got it, Dad. She's like, what else? I said, it's going to be okay. And she said, what's going to be okay? I said, well, everything. I said, you're going to fail a test. You're not going to get into a school you want to get into. You're going to crash your car, which she did twice. You are going to struggle, fall down, not be invited to a party, not getting asked to the prom. You're going to lose an election. I said, that's life, and it's going to be okay. And you have to know that. And so when you're struggling, you raise your hand. When you feel good, you go out and help somebody else. But just know, it's always going to be okay. And I said, the third thing is anything, anytime. And that's me to you. And I don't care if it's 3 a.m. I don't care. I should have said, I don't care if you crash your car, but I do care. Do you know that insurance companies, if you crash your car multiple times, they cut you off from insurance and you can't get insurance anymore? So my daughters may be the worst drivers in the history of humankind. I was talking to the insurance person myself. My wife's like, they cut us off. I'm like, that's impossible. Like, just charge us more money, whatever. Just, And they're like, no, there is no circumstance where we will cover you. And then so anyway, going back to the story. And I just told her, like, anything, anytime. Like, you call me at 3 a.m, like, it'll be all love, no judgment. I don't care what it is. You want to call me, FaceTime me, text me, I'll be there. And I just wonder, it's one of the things I'm really passionate about. We had to do it all over again. How we would treat those moments. And I wonder if you truly thought about how you could make moments special if you'd turn off the Office reruns, that you flipped on. Or if you came home and you were stressed and burnt and anxious, you find a way to kind of clear that out of your soul so you could be present, be where your feet are truly, and engage and love. And this is not a, the book, as Larry mentioned, like this is not a kind of pat on the back, victory lap type book. This is about like where I fell down and learned. But here's an example. It's like, I hadn't been to a family dinner in 25 years. And I'm not kidding. I work 150, 200 nights a year. And so I had all three of my daughters home. I went from college, was back. So during COVID, I had them all. And I bought conversation starter cards, which I thought was like so ridiculous, almost embarrassing, right? Like conversation starters. Like I always said, like you could drop me in North Korea and I'd be fine. I'd probably be mayor of the town you put me in. Give me a week, And yet with my daughters, like I was having these conversations. Hey, how you doing? Good. How was school? Fine. What'd you learn? Nothing. Anybody has teenage daughters, they know the drill. Like I have no idea what teenage boys do because I don't let them in the house. But the girls, they're tough. And I wonder, like, hey, it started something for me, And so we just started talking about, and this was some heavy issues. I mean, we had a political adventure. We had social justice, all over the place. And I had these opportunities to have real conversations with my daughter, and I wonder, like, are you having them? Am I having them enough? Are you having them with your partner? Are you having them with your friends? Are you having them with your boss? Are you having them with people that work with you? Like real meaningful conversations. Here's what my schedule looks like. In the morning, remember, teenage girls, it is NCAA tournament survive and advance time. That's it. If we get them out of the house without a nuclear meltdown, somebody borrowed somebody's shirt, someone took somebody's shoes, I can't find my backpack, whatever, you didn't charge my phone, whatever that drama of the morning is, just get them out of the house. I tell my wife, just survive in advance, just get them out. School, basketball, cheerleading, homework, boyfriends, I'm working. So how much time do I have? An hour? 45 minutes? How are you gonna spend that hour? And maybe you have more, maybe you do it better. Hope you do. Hope you have 3 hours of meaningful time to spend with your family or your children or however you define family. Your work family, your community, your church, your nuclear family, your extended family, however you define it. It's like, we have to be better. We have to do better. I certainly do. And so that's what that experience taught me is that I need to lean in. We all need to lean in, especially now.
So that was a very moving way to open the book, and quickly you're very vulnerable in this recounting. You talk about loss as an opportunity for personal growth. You lost your dream job as CEO of Madison Square Garden. You lost your father, who's a fascinating guy. You lost your best friend from Harvard Business School to suicide. What role, how is it that you find in setback opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I have no magic wand. Like when my friend took his own life, I was speaking at his funeral, and I'm looking at the kids, just like I'm looking at you guys in the front. It's 5 kids just lined up. And the only thing that kept resonating through my mind is like, he'll never be able to teach them a lesson again. He'll never be able to tell them a story about something he learned. That's the only thing that was going through my head. I walk out of there and I fall apart for about like 2 months. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced grief before, or depression, or whatever it is, or whatever it's called. But I like couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I'd walk into a meeting. I was working. I'd walk into a meeting and someone would say something. I'd burst into tears and leave. I mean, it was a disaster. And so I don't want to pretend. I just want to give the inclination that like I have this thing all figured out. Like I was a disaster. I was a mess. And then I started to write to heal. That's why I wrote the book. I was healing. That's how I started to heal. And what I started to learn when I was writing was everything meaningful I ever learned in my life came from failure. It's probably the wrong word. I talk about failing forward. So if you think about failure that way, as opposed to failure like, we lost the game, the Sixers are done, failure. Or Sixers lost a game. What did we learn? How can we retool? Or, your friend takes his own life and you knew he was suffering and you said to him, just choose to be happy. Tough one, right? Or, you get fired from a job. I'm a New York kid, so I've been living here for 18 years, but, I grew up in New York. And I'm president of Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's in my business, that's it. Like, you did it, And it's a rough place there, don't get me wrong. But I was so focused on being right all the time. Be right, be right, be right. I'm smart, I can do this. I'm working hard, I can outwork anybody. I had no idea how to be effective. No idea. So I either learn that lesson or I repeat the same mistakes. I had this executive coach. I've had 3 great executive coaches over the course of my life. This one woman, Tricia Nadoff, my mom recommended her. My mom's a leadership development trainer, or was. And she would come to see me at Madison Square Garden, and she's like, "You're a warrior." I'm like, "You're damn right I am." She's like, no, I'm not saying that as a compliment. I'm like, "Why not?" She's like, "You want to kill. You want to eat and kill." I was like, "Yes, that's what I want to do." She's like, "Yes, but you need to be a sage." I'm like, "I don't want to be a sage. I'm a deal maker. I'm a change agent. I grow companies. That's what I do, and I will kill to get there." She's like, "Yeah, you need to meditate." I literally laughed in her face. And I think about now, I tell everybody to meditate. And so how right was I at that point? Yes, we spun the company off to be a separately traded public company, put $1.2 billion into Madison Square Garden to keep it world's most famous arena. And yes, I had to close deals to make sure that all paid for itself. And it's a public company, so stock price was weighing on it. And so yes, there was a lot of pressure. And yes, we did just fine. Could I have been more effective? Yes, I could have. Did I have problems with my boss, the board, everyone else? Yes, because I was too stubborn to see out of my own way. And so when I talk about lessons learned, man, I just don't want to repeat the same thing mistake twice. And when you have a coach, you should listen. And so as I'm moving to a different phase of my life now, my joy is much less about the kill. And we do plenty of deals, my team does. And I'm much more interested in people I work with and them succeeding and then moving on and running big organizations. And I'm fairly fortunate. I've got 7 or 8 people on my tree, if you will, that are running big organizations in the sports entertainment business. And that, to me, is the joy. Where I see like a young assistant who worked for me at the NBA now just sold her agency to CAA. And I see like a young coordinator who worked for me who's now the chief deal maker at MLB. I'm like, that, to me, that's my win. And so, yes, I am moving off my warrior phase, regretfully. I actually enjoy it now. But I wonder, there's so many opportunities for us. You've heard the analogy of a mountain, climb the mountain, get to the top of the mountain. And from the outside, by a lot of accounts, by a lot of my friends, I grew up in a town that nobody leaves. Newburgh, New York, look it up. It's lovely. No, they're all my friends from high school are still there. They're all there. They didn't get out. Everyone in my family, we escaped. And I loved my childhood there, but it's a rough town. And, I don't know. I just think about, is you get to that top of that mountain and you look around and it is damn lonely up there. I'll tell you that, okay? And then you look down and you're like, that was a heck of a trail. Now that trail, okay, I had an anvil around my neck. I walked into 5 trees. I tripped over 3 rocks. But that's where I met everybody. That's where my connections happened. That's where my joy happened. That was the thrill. That was where all the learnings happened. And then you just figure out like, okay, I gotta find another hill. And so, I don't know. I just feel like it's a long answer to a short question, but I feel like if you really take stock of what you know and what you've learned, I'd be hard pressed for you to say, I sold my company and I learned X. I did a big deal and I learned Y. I built this business. Like, it's not where the learning happens.
Yeah. And you've inculcated that spirit of openness into the Sixers. You don't call them retreats.
Go forward.
You call it a go forward.
You don't retreat.
You don't retreat.
That's the warrior.
That's the warrior, right? But actually, everyone has to share at these and at these retreats something vulnerable.
Yeah, I had this boss, David Stearns, the commissioner of the NBA, and he was a mean and nasty. He was the most brilliant man I've ever been around, and it was a mentor of mine till the day he died, and I love him. He was like a second dad to me. But he was the meanest man I've ever been around. He said things to me I had to look up. I'm not kidding you. It was rough working for him. And he would mock me and my leadership style there. And he would be like, what, are we gonna sit around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya?
Well, you actually have a thing in here where when he hired you, you picked up the phone and he says, I can't believe I'm about to do this, but you're hired, or
and
something.
Slams the phone down, yeah. When I interviewed with him, he stood with his back to me for the first 20 minutes of the interview, looked out the window. Yeah, he was a tough guy. But I always believe that you can create a culture within a culture. And so no matter what you do, I say to my whole team, it's like, it's on you. Whether you manage one person or 50 people or 100 people or nobody, it's like you have to, you have to solve the problem. So in our place, we have this go forward for our top 100. And if you're selected, we do it all in-house. And it gives me a chance to be hands-on with our rising stars, because they're invited to go to facilitate, and we pair them up, one from the north, one from the south, and then I get essentially 2 months with them, and I get to know them, and they get to know me, and I teach them how to facilitate a session and get up and present and how to do it, and they're invited or forced to share a vulnerable story about who they are and where they came from, and some of them are shared in the book because I would have never known these stories. And there's a story about, it's another story, but I was on a mission to recruit moms. I inherited a very white male, 95% white male organization. We've kind of transitioned that into a diverse and inclusive organization. But at the time I was recruiting this mom, and it's kind of funny story is I was like, hey, I need you to be a mom. I'm a dad. So I go to parent-teacher conferences. I coach my kids in basketball. I'm a dad. I walk out the door. And I need you to be a mom. She's like, I'll outwork any of you guys. I'm like, I know you will. Congratulations for that. You're hardworking. That's the baseline. That gets you in the door. But I need you to be a mom. And so anyways, it turns out she was the first mom I recruited because we didn't have any moms. And so now we do, which is great. But anyway, so she was one of our early stars. And she tells a story of her son was born with a leaky liver. And he almost dies. And she literally walks through in front of her peers, and there wasn't a person that wasn't crying in the room. And there's another guy who runs communications for us, Dave Schaller, tells a story. It's about perspective, how he grew up in a trailer park right outside of Atlantic City, and his dad was an addict, and he was in a shelter, and he recounts a story like it was yesterday of him being 10 years old and mom throwing him in the old Astro van. He's got 4 kids. He's the oldest. He's 10. And they're driving to the shelter, and he's pissed. He's like, why me? Why do I have this crappy life? I have this crappy car. I live in a crappy trailer. I've got my friends all have backyards. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. And he gets to the shelter, and his dad's walking towards the car, and he looks to the left, and there's a woman there with 3 kids about the age of his siblings, and she's got a blue duffel bag. He's like, perspective. She's got nowhere to go. She's got no trailer. She's got no car. She's got no options. She's checking in to this shelter. And so again, you have a guy, you would never know, this guy's, and it's amazing. All his siblings have gone on to do amazing things. And you wonder, and there's another story, I'll share one more. Jill, who I insisted when I came in that her boss fired, which is a whole nother story for another day, but she's one of our stars. Anyway, this young guy, I said to him, I was like, get him out, get her out, get her out, get her out. I want him out. It's a cesspool, that whole group, I want him out. And one time, he's a young guy. He's now president of one of our teams. He comes in, he's like, are you gonna let me do my job? I was like, welcome to the team. I was like, it's on you, buddy. And it's on her. She's, of course, one of our stars now. He knew better. Who knew? But so Jill was adopted, and she tells a story, like she told in front of our group, about when she was 13, she went down and found her file, and she opened it up, it said abandoned, stamp, abandoned. She closed the file, and she carried that around for her whole life until she was asked to go present, to go forward. She actually flew home and went back to the file. Pretty wild. And so I tell that story, how she becomes appreciative of her mom, her birth mom. And second grade education, father left. This was her chance to give her daughter a life. So she got to change the race. In other words, she got to redefine like what abandoned meant. So it's those kinds of experiences at work that we humanize each other. Because we don't know. Like I look out, I see a bunch of good-looking, wonderful people with smiles on their faces. Hopefully you're thrilled to be here. Hopefully I'm entertaining at least one of you. And you wonder, like, are you like your Facebook posts? Are you your Instagram posts? You're not. By the way, you should keep posting. Like I love seeing like, oh, my daughter got to Yale. I'm like, my kid barely got through high school. Congratulations, you know. Oh, look at another trip to Cabo. Congratulations, I love Cabo. All that stuff, I actually love seeing it. I do. I love seeing your kid score the winning goal. I love seeing your kid getting a fancy college. I do love it. But we can't assume that that's life, because it's not. Because life is messy, and it's okay that it's messy. And I think sometimes we get in that view of the world that everything is on the surface, and it's not. And so that's what Be Where Your Feet Are is trying to do, is trying to give you a peek behind the curtain in terms of my world. And you look at my Facebook page, you're like, wow, that guy went to Cabo. Well, look, his daughter amazingly got through high school, or whatever you see. And it's good. It's good. It's good. I'm not ashamed of like my struggles, and I'm not ashamed of who I am, but there is a vulnerable peek behind the curtain. And I just invite you to think about that, like, you know, and especially today, because if you're feeling great right now, you're feeling good about yourself, and you're feeling full, it's like somebody else isn't. So I wonder, like when you're on your Zoom calls tomorrow, like somebody will have their video off. Just notice who has their video off. Like you call your friend, goes to voicemail box is full. Notice. Friend hasn't touched base with you in a month or so. Notice. Then just reach out. If you're feeling full, reach out. Just checking in. Just want to tell you I love you. I do this thing when I talk to corporate groups, is I start the group, because when you see like, hey, the CEO of Sixers, you know, whatever, sports guys coming on, and then they read the title of my book, they're like, oh, this guy's another guy telling us to put our phone down, and I will. But I always start by just saying, hey, just pick up your phone, just text your mom. Take 60 seconds, text your mom, tell you love her. And it takes 60 seconds. Because the first time I did this, and I do it every time, I text my mom or my mother-in-law. And the first time I did it, my mom texted me back. She said, hun, are you okay? Shit. Yes, I'm okay, Mom. I just want to tell you I love you. And I wonder, moms are underappreciated and we should do better with our moms, but it's really a metaphor for life. It's like, can we spend 60 seconds a day connecting with someone that we appreciate? A mentor, a teacher, a coach, a friend, a neighbor, spouse, a kid, someone that works for us, someone that we work for, someone that guided us, someone that just pops into your head. What happens to me now, because I do it every day, is someone will pop into my head in the shower. I know, a bad visual, but it's like it will pop in my head, someone. It's like the world like sending me an intention. And more than once, someone has said to me, I needed to hear from you today, thank you. And so I just invite you to think about how you're going to spend 60 seconds of tomorrow. Send a note to your mom.
I love that. And I love the theme, the narrative theme or thread throughout the book is your transformation from warrior to sage, or your aspiration to right. become full of more wisdom. And I love that. And I think, and I'm interested in how it manifests itself as a leader of an organization. Can you share, and then we'll go to questions. So,
yeah.
But share your first day on the job with the
Yeah, sure. So look, I'm a change agent, and change is hard. So we win culture awards, but it's not like the soft and fuzzy kind. It's like we have a culture of accountability. And so my first day at the Sixers, now this is an organization that was bottom 3 in every KPI that you possibly manage of an organization. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. Of the 30 teams, they give us information. We have perfect information on the 30 teams. And we were bottom 3, on and off the court. Kind of awesome. So I walked in, I'm like, grab a piece of paper and pen, leave your phones here on the table. And I just went for a walk around the organization. I just write down what you see.
So this is your management team?
My management team, yeah. But at the time, not many of them are here. 2 of them made it. And we get back, and I'm like, okay, what'd you see? Well, there's paint chipped on the wall. I'm like, okay, we can fix that, right? Yeah, well, the photos were, on the wall, they were crooked. I said, yeah. The blue, it's not Sixers blue, it's like a navy blue. I was like, yeah, we can fix that. They're going through their list of stuff. Duct tape on the floor, stuff that, because I believe your physical plant is a symptom for a bigger issue. And I just wanted to see what they were seeing, like who actually notices what's up. Oh, there are boxes stacked up in the front. We have clients here, you should fix it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you see anything else? No. I said, well, there's a Coke machine in the break room. And they're like, yeah, no, it's been there forever. I was like, yeah. Well, we're a Pepsi team. They spend a lot of money with us. So I'm just curious as to when someone's going to get it out of this office. And so they're like, oh, you serious? Yeah. They're all looking down. I was like, no, don't look down. Look up. Like, that's not how we're going to operate. So I come back in, I'm like an early bird. So I come back in the next morning, I'm like, still in there. And I start to get agitated, and I call the group back together. They cruise in whenever they wake up, and so they come in. I was like, hey, I'm not sure if I was clear yesterday, but just want to make sure, like, you're all looking at me. Yep, we got this. Okay, if that's not gone by lunchtime, one of you won't be here at this meeting tomorrow. And I just got up and walked out. It was gone the next day. Amazing, right? It worked. So that's my warrior phase for sure. Let me tell you about my sage phase. My 14-year-old daughter's introverted, and I'm an extrovert. You might have like clued into that. My wife's introverted, but not. She's more middle. But my one, she's like social anxiety, doesn't want to see people. Like, I'd be like, hey, let's go for ice cream. She's like, I think I'm gonna stay home and color. Even when she was 5, I'm like, stay home and color. We're going for ice cream. So I read about introverts, and I had a real hard time connecting with her. My other 2 are type A loonies like I am, so it's easy for me. But I struggled. So I just read, and the aha moment for me is I'm starting to connect with her, and I was like, all the people that didn't make it on my management team are now rifling through my head as I'm talking to her. I'm like, holy crap, I'm better than this. Because I was running my organization and running my meetings just like I'd like to be running me. I debate, challenge, put you on the spot, cold call you, let's go, let's fight this out. And what you find out about introverts is they're smarter, they're more sensitive, they're more intuitive, and they're more creative. And I had run every single one of them out of my organizations. And that's bad tennis. In fact, we had this incredible woman, Amy Heaver, some of you may know her. She ran our foundation and built it from scratch. And I was doing my 6-month check, if you do 6-month check with execs. And I said, hey, how's it going? It's great. I said, okay, so you're happy? Yes. Do you have the resources you need? No. Okay, what do we need to do? I need this. I said, okay, not right now, but let's see what we can get you there. What else? Well, I like this. Terrific. How about this? How's the integration? Great. I was like, okay, what's the worst? Is there anything bad? Anything we need to change? What's the worst thing you have going? She's like, your leadership meetings. I was like, my leadership meetings? So I do this leadership development meeting once a month, and where I have a different topic, a podcast, a video, and then we break into groups and we talk about how it might impact our life. I do total mind, body, soul stuff. I talk about like developing the whole self and then professional development. I was like, that's my favorite part. She's like, yeah, 2 days before I can't sleep, I dread them. The day coming in, I want to call in sick. I was like, what am I doing that's that bad? Can you please coach me here? What do I need to do? She said, I'm terrified you're going to call on me, and I don't think well on my feet. I was like, I'm better than this. So that's when I channel my inner Eliza. That's my 14-year-old. I'm like, okay. I said, hey, you'll never get called on. Are we good? Ever, by me. She's like, yeah, we're good. I'm like, you think other people feel the same way? She goes, oh, absolutely. So yes, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm interested. I want to be better.
Let's open it up to anyone who has a question. You can come up to the mic. And as people that was an appropriate story, because now he'll tear you apart when you ask him a question.
What'd you say?
But while people are mustering the courage to do that, let me ask you, you're a big acronym guy.
Yes.
Tell us what API and what's the other one? WMI, is that right?
Yep. So WMI, this will be quick, I promise. I would love a question. WMI stands for what's most important. And if you were to remember one thing and one thing only tonight, I would advise you to think about what this means. And I would create a little chart, there's one in the book, where you say, what's most important at work, what's most important in relationships, and what's most important to yourself. Just 3 things for each. And then take your calendar and you do an audit. And you take every block that you have scheduled for your week, and you try to fit it into one of those 9 blocks that you just wrote, and just put another one just for stuff that doesn't exactly fit. It is the most humbling exercise in the world. When I first did it, I was at 23%. 23% of my time was spent on the stuff that I claim matters most to me in the world, that's most critically important. Think about how frightening that is. I have this executive coach, Brendan Bouchard. He's an incredible guy, worth a Google on YouTube. And he told me that his research with over 10,000 executives found that high performers spend at least 65% of their time on the 3 things that matter most at work. I was like, I've got some work to do. And I wonder how you would do it. Maybe you do it. Maybe you knock it out of the park and you guys would be at 100% and you only focused on what matters most. I would encourage you to do that. So that's my what's most important. And that's on you to figure it out. API, assume positive intent. Something, I read an article, Indra Nooyi, former chairman, I think she's still the chairman of Pepsi. And so she said they asked her, like, what did you learn from your dad? And she said, API, assume positive intent. So that's been in our house and in my work for 15 years. In fact, if you are leaving our house, you'll see a slate on top of the door that says API. Assume positive intent, because I think it makes the world better. Here's how you know you're not assuming positive intent. Your boss calls and you immediately start, like your heart starts racing and you're automatically mad. Or your sister texts you and all she texts you is, hey, what's up? I'm gonna be late. And you're like, of course she's late. She's always late. Or one of your girls walks down the stairs and she gets attacked by her sister because she has her sneakers on. So we talk about assuming positive intent at work and at home. And it's a better way to communicate. It's a better way to live. It gives you a clean slate. You start over. Like, I try to start every conversation over completely empty-headed. I'm not focused on what you said to me a week ago, a day ago. I'm not trying to read into your text, which have no meaning other than the actual meaning you intended it to be, right? So it's a good starting place. So those are, I am a little acronym heavy though. NBA, obviously, nothing but attorneys.
Let's hear from some people here. I'm sure there are some thoughts, or you can even raise your hand and you don't have to. Yes, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is that you have to define success, and everybody defines success very differently. And so there is a notion of financial success, and there's a notion of career success, there's a notion of family success, and there's a notion of spiritual success and emotional success. And so that's the first thing I ask them back. It's like, how do you define success, and in what categories of your life is that important to you? If it leans back to career, I was ambitious once. When I was young, I was so ambitious, I didn't even understand the negative connotation to the word ambition. Okay, so that's how ambitious I was. I honestly, I didn't even understand it. Like, and I asked, I'm like, I don't understand why that's bad. Yeah, and so there are three things that I've found that that young people today, if they do, life gets a lot better for them career-wise. And that's you have to work unreasonably hard. I think that's the price of admission. I really do. I've never met anyone that's successful that doesn't work unreasonably hard. And if I do, I'm going to quit whatever I'm doing and do whatever they're doing. The second is to be intellectually curious. And I think that's a lost art. I think sometimes we get on a treadmill and it's very difficult for us. We do what we learn about our core business, or if you're, if you're at home, you're learning about whatever you do, okay? And that's what we do, because time is our most precious resource and we don't have a lot of it. So and I would just say to everybody, be intellectually curious outside of your core business. You have to do, like in my business, there are things you have to read every week. You have to, or you're out of the loop and you don't know what's happening. And I'm saying you got to pick something else as well. And so for me, like over the pandemic, it was blockchain for me. Like that's what I was interested in. Blockchain. I think blockchain and 5G are going to change the world today, like the way we understand the world today. And I'm fascinated by blockchain. And and so I've probably studied for 200 hours. And I'm not, and it ended up coming into our business, which was ironic. But I wonder, like, I would be challenging them to ask them what they're reading. You know what the kid will say? Well, it's hard enough with school. I've got 5 classes. I'm like, I know. That's my daughter. I'm like, it must be exhausting. You're actually in class for 15 hours a week. How do you do it? Like, how do you get it all done? And you have to eat and shower. So I strongly encourage that. And then the third thing I'd say is to be an extraordinary teammate. I think that's a lost art. I was really fortunate in my business. I have a really young team. So we're average age probably 26 and a half or so in my organization. So they're really, really young. And I was telling myself, like in a room like this, I'd be like, look around. It's like, see all these people here? They're going to be, half of them will be running the sports and entertainment business in 20 years. Think about it through all your friends. Not in a Machiavellian way, but think if you help them now. Think about, hey, I'm in sales, I sold something. Hey, look, Larry, this is what worked. You're like, oh, cool, that guy's great. What if you're checking in on them when they're struggling? Then you have, if there are 100 people in here, you have 50 friends running the business. And that's what I have. Mine was accidental. I'm just naturally like interested in people. So the people that I worked with are now running the sports and entertainment world all around the world. For me to get a deal done, it's just a phone call.
Let's go to one more question, and then I just thought of something that, did you have something else? Let's go over here first.
Hey, Raj.
Oh, yeah, I'll repeat the question, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very simple question.
Who do you look up to? Present company accepted.
Other than Larry, boy, there's so many people I look up to. My brother Michael's probably the one I look to. He's my younger brother. He's this incredible CEO, and he seems to he's the one I call when I have a question about life or my faith or business or family or fatherhood. He has daughters. He just started this incredible charity to bring black families and white families together called Graybridge, which he thinks will scale and change the world.
Called what is it?
Graybridge.
Graybridge.
And he built this healthcare tech company, which is kind of transforming interactive patient care as we know it today. And he did it from, he started it when he was arguably on his deathbed, going through chemo for non-Hodgkin's when he was at JD MBA at Georgetown. So he's definitely someone I look up to. Work-wise is complicated for me. It doesn't mean I don't look up to Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of the NBA, is a good friend, and Gary Bettman, who's the commissioner of the NHL, is a good friend. But it's complicated. In my role in the business I've built, our business is a $3 billion business now. So, a lot of my role models and mentors, I have my platform has gotten bigger. So I have a lot of people that I connect with, and but I guess the commissioners I'd add as well.
Let's go to one last question, and then I have one. Let me translate that for the audience at home. Recently bought a business, hired someone, not really happy with the running of with the job performance. How do you have a discussion about that person's job performance without discouraging them?
Okay, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to take you all the way down the path first, and then we'll come back to your question. So here's the path. Here's how I fire people. So I've fired hundreds of people in my life, okay? Hundreds. Here's how I do it. Larry, come on in. How you doing?
I'm fearful now.
Yeah. No, this isn't going to be a great conversation, but I just want to make sure that you understand where I am. You're not going to have a future in this organization.
Wow.
And it's not going well, okay? And it has nothing really, I mean, who knows what the reason is? Like when you started 3 years ago, you were smart, you were talented, you were hardworking, you're a wonderful person, and that's why you came in here. You're still that same person, but there's no fit. Whether it's a fit or your boss or you or something's changed, it doesn't really matter, but your ability to drive change here, be successful here, have growth here, it's not happening. So here's what I'd like to do. I would like to work with you over the next, 3 months, 6 months, and help you find a role somewhere else where you can be successful. And that same incredible person that we hired is going to have an opportunity somewhere. And I would like this to be between the two of us, okay? And my contract with you is you keep doing your job and working and being a great teammate, and you'll be here with me until you can exit out of here properly. That's how I fire people.
Wow.
Okay?
I'm ready to be fired now.
It's a great way to do it, right? So again, go Machiavellian. Go Machiavellian first, because that's where the cynics in the crowd will look. You just saved severance, right? I also probably just saved Larry's career. I didn't put him out on the street. I've been out of work. It sucks, especially without any money. It's really hard. It's a lot of pressure. I don't want that. It's a really small industry I work in, so I want to make sure that we're all connected and that people say good things. Most of the people send me holiday cards still. People I fired. I remember I fired this one guy. He'd been to this place 18 years, okay? And I broke down in tears firing him. And he's like, Scott, it's good. You're okay. Anyway, another story for another day. So I'm pretty direct when it comes to feedback. So they're like really simple feedback models that you can use. The one my mom always advocates for is the first thing, you sit the physician down and you say, hey, are you interested in some feedback? That's the first thing you want to ask. And if that person says no, you're probably going to have the former conversation. Are you interested in feedback? Yes. And I don't know what the issue is, but you want to just deal with the issue specifically, right? So I'll make up an issue. Well, hey, you've been here a month now, and it's not going particularly well. A lot of it has to do with your bedside manner, quite frankly. You haven't been a great teammate. I'm getting feedback from everybody in the office that this is not a good fit. And I want to give you 3 things I want you to focus on, commit to, and work on. And then we're going to check in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in 4 weeks, just to make sure we're making progress. But I want them to be measurable so you actually understand where you are. And then they'll have some excuses, because that's what will come. That's not really fair. John's a jerk, and, Jane is really difficult to work with. Yeah, no, I know, but this conversation is about you. And I actually want to focus on you and your career, because I want you to be successful here. And to do that, you're going to have to make some changes, or it's not going to work. Are we good? Are we clear? Yes. Okay, tell me what you heard me say, and walk me through what your action plan is. And he asks, have him write it down. Okay, great. What makes sense? Should we get back together in a week or 2 weeks? Tell me what you think makes sense. Good. Are you open to getting feedback like this? Because I want to make sure that you're comfortable, but this is the way we're going to operate. That's the kind of model I would use. But I'm not for beating around the bush. I'm not for reading the tea leaves. I'm not for assuming that she feels that she or he is struggling. I would go right between the eyes.
So we're going to close out, but I realized that I'd be remiss if I didn't raise this issue, which is, when I first met you, I was like, who is this slick back hair sales guy who's hugging everyone? It was a hoopstv.com, which that's another story we could get into, which meeting, and what you demonstrated over the years and in this book is this propensity to always be in a state of becoming, sort of perpetual growth. And I was struck by the fact that you talked about WMI, and you say in the book that racial equality is your new WMI. And I think that I'd be remiss if I don't bring up the fact that you purposefully underwent a racial re-education after George Floyd.
Yes, for sure. So first off, I kind of alluded to early on, I inherited a really white male-dominated organization, 95% white men, and went on to put processes in place to make sure that we have a really diverse organization now. And so 61% of the people, you can tell I actually like study the numbers. I actually have benchmarks. I hold my team accountable. But 61% of the new people that I've hired since I've been here have not been white men. And I have put down rules like you cannot hire a white man for this position, which doesn't go over real well in any organization, but I do it. I also say that half of your final candidates for any position have to be diverse. And so over time, it takes time, depending, 3 to 5 years, depending on what your turnover rate is. But in 3 to 5 years, you wake up and you have a really diverse organization. And we went from, 1 woman VP to 18, and 13 SVPs are hired. Our COO, our general manager of our building, our chief revenue officer, our 2 heads of marketing, our chief people officer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And from a black and brown people of color area, we have 34% of our organization is now non-white, and we have more people of color in executive roles than all the teams in Philly and all the teams in Jersey combined. And it's still not enough, and we have work to do. But I would just say that my friend called me and said, "Scott, I saw you hired a chief diversity officer." I said, "Bro, you're the chief diversity officer. Look in the mirror. It's like, you can hire the position, but you are the chief diversity officer. You're the CEO. That's what you do. That's your job." And I believe in my soul that builds better, stronger, faster companies. And so I believe that that's our sustainable competitive advantage. So that's the baseline. Then George Floyd gets murdered. And we have our general manager is black, our head coach is black, so we have forces for good who are very comfortable on the stage and educating. And having such a diverse organization, we opened up the floor, and we had 3 90-minute sessions in a row, 1, 2, 3 days in a row of our black employees, predominantly black employees, sharing experiences of racism. And it was a lot. Like, one of my friends looked in because it was all Zoom, and he looked at the camera. He's like, "Scott, I've been pulled over 53 times in the last 3 years." And then he gave a great line. He's like, "But I speed," which I thought was funny. And then he said, and he looks in the camera. He's like, "Scott, has anybody asked you if it's your car?" I was like, "No, they haven't." And then our general manager is one of the most recognizable people in Philadelphia, Elton Brand, told a story about tripping his alarm in his fancy neighborhood in the main line. And his wife, Seneca, he said, "Seneca, you gotta get the door." She's like, "I'm not getting the door. You tripped the alarm." The cop sirens are going. He's like, "Seneca, do you know what's gonna happen to me if I walk out and answer this door in this neighborhood?" And he's like, "Look, I run in this neighborhood. I run with metallic reflective vests. It's like, not because I need it, because I want them to know that I live here." And so there were now these stories went on for 3 days, okay? And I always consider myself a champion in that area. I really do. And I was like not thrilled with myself. And the reason I wasn't thrilled was, by the way, my communications team doesn't like me telling this story. Every time I tell it, they get mad, and I'm going to tell it anyway. I didn't really understand what systematic racism was. Like, I just didn't even understand it. I didn't understand Jim Crow laws. I didn't understand redistricting. I didn't understand what the banks did and housing and real estate. I honestly just didn't understand. And so I read a Harvard case on it, and I got educated. I'd never heard of the Tulsa Massacre. I never even heard of it. I grew up in a very diverse town. Never heard of it. Shame on me. So I studied, like I do every time I don't know what I'm talking about. And I got more educated. And I encouraged my team to get educated. white, black, brown, everybody in between. Like, let's go, let's read, let's study. Here's a podcast. Here's a TED Talk. And so we got better and smarter, and hopefully, and like it's like life. There's no finish line, right? You just need to commit and keep learning. So that's what I'm doing.
That's a great place to end. You're a great citizen of Philadelphia and of Camden, where you've been involved in some tremendous strides in policing successes, and it's a great book. So without further ado, let's have you sign some books for people. And thank you so much, Scot O'Neil.
Thank you, sir.